So welcome everyone to this EU Cluster Collaboration talk on funding opportunities, shared management programs. We're taking a closer look at programs the European Commission is in charge of, including Horizon Europe, Erasmus, launching the calls for proposals, picking the winners, assessing their results, writing the checks through this funding and tenders portal. How does this work? This EU Clusters talks are organized by the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, ECCP, on behalf of DG GROW at the European Commission. The agenda today, we're going to start with a bit of news. We'll have EC funding on EC funding opportunities, how it works from the European Commission, presentations of 3 project examples, and then a panel discussion, including you. And we want to get all of you involved, as many of you involved as possible. Your questions you can give at the hit the button at the bottom of the screen, or you can just hit the button to raise your hand if you want to be able to say it yourself, pose a question yourself. You can also communicate in the chat. The chat is also a really good exchange of information there. Keep in mind the hashtag EU Clusters Talks, and this is being recorded for playback. There you can see all the housekeeping rules there. Okay, so let's begin with news from the Cluster Collaboration Platform with Nina Hoppmann, team member from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. Nina, please.
Thanks, Chris, and good morning, everyone. Happy to see you here this morning. In case you haven't read or seen the State of the Union address yet that President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, gave past week, both the speech and the complete wording as well as the video are available online. So we encourage you to have a look at that. She spoke about past challenges, what was achieved in Europe, as well as gives an outlook to the future, which gives an outline and perspective about what will be happening and what challenges we are addressing in terms of this next. So I think it's a very interesting outline to read and to see where we're heading. She announced in this State of the Union address as well the new SME relief package, which is a series of initiatives to address the needs of SMEs in the current environment. Under these initiatives, we find support to strengthen the SME liquidity by preventing late payments, simplifying taxes, access to finance, as well as creating and enabling regulatory framework support during the whole life cycle of SMEs, and access to relevant skills. You can also find a press release on this in the corner of the website for the press releases of the European Commission, and if you click on the link in the chat. Also very interesting for clusters is the communication that the Commission will facilitate the activities of cross-border associations in the EU, and this should help removing legal and administrative barriers for non-profit associations to operate in more than one member state, which is already the case for various nonprofit associations, and there is a potential for even more to get engaged in more than one member state. And for this, the Commission proposes an additional legal form of a European cross-border association and in the national legal systems of the member states. It's interesting to keep a lookout for this as well. And we would, of course, like to invite you to the next events that are organized by the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. One of them is the Clusters Meet Regions, which is an event in different countries where we discuss the role of clusters in the regional economies as drivers of the transition, and where we look at how clusters and regional stakeholders, including the regional governments, collaborate. Next ones will take place in France in mid-October, in the Czech Republic at the end of October, Germany in November, as well as Romania at the end of November, and Poland in December. You can register via the link in the chat. We also invite you to come to Brussels on the 12th of October to the EU Regions Week, where we will hold an in-person cluster talk as said in the, as we saw in the previous slides, to talk about the role of clusters in the regional economic transition. We will discuss first results of the Clusters Meet Region event, as well as how to strengthen the role of clusters in local resilience. Register until the 30th of September and meet us in person in Brussels. And last but not least, of course, we invite you to come to the EU Industry Days, which will take place on the 4th until the 6th of October in Malaga, in Spain. I think it's your flagship event for the industry, and to discuss industrial policy and to have some inspirational talks. If you look at the program, very interesting speakers about, of course, transition, increasing resilience, improve our strategic economy, and also discuss Ukraine. Register for this via the QR or the link in the chat, and see you there. And back to you, Chris, to hear more about shared management funding programs.
Yeah, that's great, Nina. Thank you. And by the way, I'm going to just tease the Slidos that are going to be coming up. So we're going to be tapping your brains on what you think, what kinds of projects you're working on, and what your takeaway is. So get ready for that. But before we get to that, let's talk to Andre Jon, a Deputy Head of Unit at DG Budget, European Commission, to talk more about this principle of shared management and overview of funds. Andre, you're leading a team that is handling the cohesion policy budget. And for those who don't know about that, that's nearly 400 billion euros from 2021 to 27. So that's quite a big pot to deal with. That keeps you very busy in your team as well, right, Andre?
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everybody. And indeed, it's a big pot of money, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to share with you some of high-level information on shared management, how it works, and then I'm of course happy to discuss and take any particular questions, because there is a lot to cover when we're talking about shared management funding. As I mentioned, it will be a high-level presentation, so just quickly to go through the agenda of my slides. It's a definition of what is shared management, an overview of the amounts and funds available, and then to give you a little bit of a flavor of what are the latest news in regards to shared management funding. So starting right off the bat to what is exactly shared management and how it differs, especially from what is generally more known throughout the practitioners' world, is that there's three types of management for the EU budget. Now, as I mentioned, most of it is which is known is in direct management, directly managed by the Commission services, with calls of proposals published by the Commission and the selection of projects done by the Commission, or in indirect management with partner organization. But about 2/3 or 70%, almost 70% of the EU funding is actually managed jointly by the European Commission and national authorities. So there is the shared responsibility between the Commission and national authorities, with very clear-cut responsibilities on each side, but working together under what is called the partnership principle, which is extremely important because it involves all spheres of society in the implementation. So the goal of the partnership principle is really to have both national authorities at national, regional, or local level involved in the preparation and in implementation of the funding, but to also have economic and social partners joining in, research organizations, universities, the civil society. So the idea is really to bring all stakeholders together and have input from everybody, both in the upfront definition of what should be done with the funds, and then in the implementation of those funds. Now, the way it works is that for the next 7 to 9 years, which is the implementation period of shared management funds, then upfront, together with the member states, the Commission works out a strategic plan. What do we want to do with this big pot of money that you mentioned, Chris? And of course, taking into account current economic conditions. So the majority of the funding is focused on less developed regions to help them bring up their economic status and catch up with the rest of the Union, but also taking into account, you know, the country-specific recommendations in the European semester. So some of the more broad reform elements that need to be implemented by member states in order to have a good economic and macroeconomic environment. And then taking account of climate change and the environment aspect. And then it is declined or detailed in the programs where, let's say, they can be at national or regional level. Most member states go to the regional level, and there we have a more detailed assessment of really the types of actions that will be done with this big pot of money. Now, on the slide, you will see, and I'm sure that it will be shared with you, a very important pool of information, which is a list of the national single portals, because in the regulations itself, member states they have the mandate and the obligation to publish all funding opportunities into a national portal, where information on the implementation of funds is presented, but more importantly, upcoming funding opportunities. So as you see here on the slide, the responsibility for the day-to-day management, and by that I mean the publication of the calls for proposals and the selection of projects, sits with the member states, but that information is widely available in all member states, and it is mandated and organized in a similar form across the 27 member states. Now, if we move on to the next slide, just to bring indeed some of the figures and the different funds into the picture, you will see that there are many different funds depending, let's say, on the policy area. So cohesion policy is covered more on the side of heading 2A with the cohesion fund and the ERDF, which are really focused on research and innovation, on infrastructure projects, on climate change resilience. And then there's the ESF Plus, the European Social Fund Plus, which targets a lot training, reskilling, upskilling measures. And then under the natural resources, there's of course a big pot of money, which is direct payments to farmers, not necessarily relevant in this particular cluster talk, but still the Agricultural Fund for Rural Development, again, has a very important component in terms of research and innovation and of infrastructure projects, but targeted, of course, on rural areas. Then the Just Transition Fund, which is a new fund targeting a lot the regions most affected by the transition to a green economy. And again, with the purpose of helping both local businesses and especially people to cope with this transition and move and have the right skills to adapt to the new world. And then the European Maritime and Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, which is of course dedicated to helping aquaculture and fisheries SMEs and the people involved in this. I mean, the amounts expressed here are in billions over a seven-year period. Very significant amounts in and of themselves, with about 1.5 million projects implemented on the ground throughout this period. So then a significant impact on the ground and significant funding opportunities for those who will interact at regional and local level with the national authorities, will apply and will reach this. It's important to note that, again, as I said at the beginning, maybe the focus is on less developed regions for the majority of the funding, but it is available in all regions and all member states. So no matter where you are from, you do have the possibility to access funding from shared management. EU funding is available with different focus. So I will move to the next slide and explain a little bit about that. Because it is important to note that, of course, there are broad policy objectives that we want to reach with these significant amounts. And depending on the economic status of the different regions, there are different requirements of focus. For the less developed regions, of course, as I mentioned, we want to bring up the infrastructure, and we want to help the general economic conditions there to bring them along to the EU average. And then in more developed regions, there are stricter conditions of how much of the funding should be spent on climate objectives and on support for innovation and green transition. So you will see that there's significant amounts which are earmarked specifically for this. And then the richer the member state, or the richer the region, then the higher the percentage of the amounts that need to be dedicated to this. I will make also a small point here of link with some of the instruments that you will more hear about in detail next week. As far as I understand, in direct management, there is a lot of link possible between shared management and direct management, in the sense that some member states have chosen to transfer part of the amounts that they have available to direct management programs when they want to focus on specific projects there. But also, more importantly, I'd like to mention the Seal of Excellence, which is available basically for high quality projects. It's a quality label which is assigned to projects which demonstrate a very good quality. It is given under Horizon Europe, but then projects which receive this Seal of Excellence go through a much lighter procedure for receiving funds under shared management. So there is a lot of link between the two, and there are, let's say, simplified procedures available to the member states to award funding to projects which have this quality label. So it is important to note, because then the access to funding becomes easier. Now, moving on to the natural resources part. So the next slide on natural resources and environment. I mentioned already the rural development part of the common agricultural policy. Right now, the way the funding works is really under a national CAP strategic plan, Common Agricultural Policy Strategic Plan, where everything is built around key social, environmental, and economic objectives focused on agriculture, forestry, and rural areas. The implementation is starting now in 2023. So also there, a very significant amount of money is available for funding, and the calls for proposals on this are being launched by the member states as we speak. Now, moving on to the next slide is basically focusing on some of the latest developments. And the STEP proposal from the cohesion from the Commission is focused on cohesion policy, and it has again the purpose of really focusing the funding available here together with the member states on some of the more emerging technologies, so deep and digital, clean technologies and biotechnologies, which will receive significant amounts of pre-financing, much higher than the rest, let's say, of the projects. And there is also a very strong link with other funding opportunities in the EU budget. So the proposal covers cohesion, but also InvestEU, the RRF, and Horizon Europe, Innovation Fund, and Digital Europe program. So a lot of funding opportunities which are put together in this proposal, with the intention of really giving companies and practitioners which are interested in developing these new technologies, receiving the right amount of support for this. And as an evolution from the Seal of Excellence, which I mentioned earlier, There is the introduction of the sovereignty seal, which again is a quality label which is awarded to high quality projects in these areas of investment, and which will cover this very broad range of programs which I mentioned. So it is extended significantly compared to the Seal of Excellence. And again, the intention is to simplify for practitioners and applicants the access to funding, because once they get this seal in a program where maybe they did not get, because of competition, the needed amount of funding, they then can use that to access funding in the other programs, and especially under shared management, under the ERDF and Cohesion Fund, much easier and going through a much lighter procedure than would normally be the case. So this will help project promoters attract investment. It will help projects really go through the different funding opportunities in a quicker and faster way. And there will be an introduction once the proposal from the Commission is approved by the Parliament and the Council, the introduction of this sovereignty portal, which is really an idea of having a one-stop shop covering all needed information for project promoters from the different calls of the proposals for different funds. Of course, this will be complementary to the national portals which I mentioned earlier, but really the intention is to simplify the access to information with this. So this proposal is let's say in the legislative process together with the Parliament and Council, and we expect that early next year it will come into force. That's my information, high-level information that I wanted to share with you, and I'm happy to take questions later on and participate in the discussion. And of course, feel free to reach me directly later on if you want to get in touch. Thank you very much.
That's great,
Chris.
Andre. Yeah, thank you so much, and good to know that you can stay with us throughout this session. So if we have any questions for you, bring you back on the dance floor. What about tapping everybody's brains with a Slido? Shall we do that before we get started with the projects? We're going to go through 3 projects and the people behind them, talking about them. But first, let's go to Slido. So you can see hashtag shared management when you go to slido.com, or you can use that QR code. And we are going to ask you, question is coming up. I have implemented, or I am implementing, a project funded by. And if you could check one of those, that would be great to know. And let's see what the result is. Okay, well, let's give it a little time. There are many different funds serving different purposes, you know, as Andre was talking about, and targeted for very, very key parts of Europe's economy and trying to transition it as well. So that's interesting to see. European Regional Development Fund, I guess that makes sense. It's a very large fund, right? Right, Andre? That makes sense, huh? Because it's a very big fund.
It does make sense, but of course, I have to say that I'd like to bring the first part way lower.
Yeah.
I hope we will be able to help practitioners reach out to these funding opportunities easier.
Are there certain funds that you think are you know, that could be a big opportunity because they're not being tapped enough?
Well, I think for sure, you know, looking at some of the, let's say, lower percentages in terms of ESF Plus and the Just Transition Fund, again, significant amounts of money. The JTF is just starting out. So it's also targeting very specific regions. So let's say the amounts there are earmarked for specific policy purposes. But yes, I think there's room for improvement across the board. And I'm not surprised that the RDF is the biggest percentage, though.
Yeah, because it's so big, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yes, and also very, very focused on helping SMEs and regional support. Yeah.
Right. And can you explain a little bit more then the difference between direct management and shared management? That the shared management is you're working with the European governments to work out that funding. I guess both have their pluses and minuses, right?
Well, I think, I mean, the main difference, of course, is in what I mentioned regarding indeed the project selection process, because in terms of project selection, of course, when you're talking about direct management, this is done by the Commission, by EU institutions. So then there's this, in a way, single point of contact for the whole of the call,
Right.
for everybody in Europe, and the competition is also across Europe. Now, in terms of shared management, I would say the big advantage is that this is closer to the point of origin of the people trying to implement the projects.
I see.
They can reach out to their regional authorities,
Right.
and have that local contact in a much simpler way. Of course, that will depend a lot also on the national setups and the regional setups and the administrative capacity of the authorities.
Yeah.
But what I would also encourage is very much this partnership principle that I mentioned at the beginning, is that when setting up the program and when setting up the strategy for the next 7 years, national and regional authorities are very much looking at getting the input from stakeholders. So I would say it is worthwhile to look at that moment, which is generally at the beginning of an MFF, when the preparation of the program is done, and to provide input to them in terms of what is needed by the practitioners, and help the regional authorities define better their plans. So I would say, okay, today maybe the time is a little bit behind us, but something to think about for the not so far away future, when the preparation for the next MFF starts.
Okay, great. Well, I see questions coming in, but let's first get to the presentations, starting with a project example from Bruno Amaro, project manager Mobinov of Portugal. That's a Portuguese-based auto cluster. You got some nice videos there online, mobinov.pt. Bruno, talk about your project.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and good morning, everyone. So my name is Bruno. I'm representing the automotive class of Portugal, Mobinov, and I will explain our mission, and then how I will explain some projects that proves the implementation of our mission. So our mission is to promote in a sustainable way the growth and competitiveness of the automotive industry in Portugal through the cooperation between all the stakeholders. So the companies, the academia, so the triple helix ecosystem, because we know that we can grow and improve the competitiveness through cooperation between these type of entities. So then from Mobinov, I will explain 3 projects. In the first slide, I will explain about the collective actions that was with 3 partners, so Mobinov and 2 more associations from automotive industry, and together we implement 2 projects. One focus on qualification, and other internationalization. The first, the project that I will explain is from the ERDF, so the European Regional Development Fund, and in Portugal, the program we called Portugal 2020. So about our first project. So this need to the importance of data and the information about automotive industry nowadays, it's very important. We decided with this project to develop a digital platform with important indicators about automotive industry, not in Portugal, but in European and global. And with this data, we develop some reports and some studies to see to analyze the automotive ecosystem, so the needs, the trends, so the challenges, what can be implemented. So we develop this type of actions. Also, we had working groups with some thematic topics, and with one working group, the result was one project about decarbonization to help the companies is that topic. And to finalize this project, we organized a summit to get together all the stakeholders of the automotive industry in Portugal to share knowledge, to do networking, to for the companies have potential context to increase this engagement of the stakeholders. And the goal was to improve this competitiveness, and with these actions we engage more our members and all the companies from automotive industry. About the second project, about internationalization, was about not engage the stakeholders, but to show or to prove to the world that Portugal has the skills in automotive industry. So we developed some press releases, social media campaigns, and we went to fairs to show to the world what Portugal is capable of. So we engage. So you can see the picture with one company in Hannover Messe. We went to Hannover Messe. So then we can see a picture of take a look at us, get an eye full. So it was about the campaign. So to identify market opportunities in European and to help companies to enter in the European market and to have here some collaboration, international collaboration between the companies from Portugal to the European. This was more the Mobinov. The role of Mobinov was the coordinator, and the next project, it was about communication dissemination. So can you please go to the next slide? So this project, it was important for Mobinov because Mobinov had an idea to how we can have a proposal for R&D project and to show the skills of the automotive industry in Portugal. And we decided, so the R&D project is to build a car. So this car is all Portuguese. So the components all is from Portugal. And we engage all cluster members. So you can see universities, companies, tech centers. So and our role was to not to engage these stakeholders, but to disseminate the results of this project and the skills of our members. So the goal of the project I'm talking about is PAC, so Portugal Auto Cluster for the World, and the goal was to build the car of the future as a demonstrator of the skills of the automotive industry. So the impact. So here we developed some emerging technologies for in materials and process, also new methodologies for digital transformation in the interiors and structures. So here with the companies developed some patents from the some components to build this car, so as a demonstrator.
Any chance of mass production, or is this just a prototype and that's
it's a prototype. It's a prototype.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will put in the chat some links for you to know better these projects, and somehow here if you need if you have any doubt, I'm available also to clarify.
Okay.
And next slide. So to finalize my presentation with this experience with as a coordinator and as a role of communication and dissemination, in our opinion, the benefits from this type of funding schemes is we can implement important activities using a financial support. So it's not we have a financial support. About the with the R&D projects, we can have here the improve of the innovation, so innovation research advancement, access to expertise also, and the projects has an impact in economic growth, because here companies got more products, new products, innovative products and services, and job creations to implement projects. And then social environment impact, because the projects were with the aim objectives the goals of this project is to have an impact not only in economic but social environment impact. About the challenges, the challenge is the competitive application process, because here we have a lot of entities that has experience, because Mobinov has 7 years, so we are a recent cluster, and we have other entities with more years, so with more experience. So it's our first challenge. Then we have a lot of requirements that we need to fulfill, and the administrative overhead, because it's too many papers. And about the regulations, because we need to adapt the project, because the regulations are changing, and we need to adapt to these changes. And the challenge is weak dependency on funding, because if we are going to funding, not to only have activities depending on funding. And with all these benefits, challenges, our experience with these projects, our tips for the future is we need to start early the proposals, to have more time to think and to adapt and to be more personalized, to make the difference, the proposal, so customize your application. And then we need to understand all the requirements. We need to read carefully. We need to pay attention to all these requirements. The projects must, so the research must associate with the needs of the company. So the direct contact with the cluster members, it's important for us to know these projects will make an impact in our members directly and indirectly. And final, the letters of recommendation, because if you have a relevant entity that says that this project will be good for the future, is also benefit from your proposal. And to finalize, this is what were my inputs about our experience with this type of fundings. And thank you once again for inviting us to speak a little bit about our experience. So,
thank you. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you. And please stay on, because we'll have you involved in this Q&A after that. Let's move on to Felix Arion, General Manager of Agro Transylvania Cluster in Romania. This is about technology transfer for R&D and I. And Felix, go ahead, please. Tell us about your
thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Well, as you know, financing is quite a big problem for all the clusters. But in our case, that kind of projects, you will see they are not very big. They are somewhere around 140, 180,000 euros. Well, not big, but if you're thinking about the fact they are involving some investment, you don't say that you can live with that kind of project. What is interesting, I selected today 4 projects. All of them are, in fact, dedicated to short value chain, which is financed in Romania by the Strategic National Plan at the moment. One of the program, the project is done, was finalized in 2017-19. It was done, and it was thinking about creating a short value chain, a short marketing, and giving a boost to local products in a specific region of Romania. You will see as members there are 2 universities. It is Agro-Transylvania cluster and a couple of producers that have to work together. Very interesting for this project, it was the fact that we created 5 own identity brands specific to the regions. So the fruits from that area had a specific I don't know, specific view in the eyes of consumers. Well, and of course, we had the opportunity to buy a vehicle equipped with a refrigerator, so we can move that kind of products. If we are moving to
what kind of fruit, Felix? Are those apples?
Yes,
there,
we
or
are
those
talking
cherries?
mostly about apples and plums in that area of Bihor area.
Okay.
So if you please move to the second one, second project. Yes, this is one of the projects we are running at the moment, will be done at the end of the next year. And it is created together to other 2 members, as you see there, Tough Press Oil and Solex company. It is about creating, again, a boost for very high quality cold pressed oil to
olive
the company.
Oil, I guess. Is that olive oil?
Yes.
Or some? Okay.
Well, not olive oils. We have olives only on the tables in Romania. So there are different kind of oils, rapeseeds, sunflower oils, and many other very particular kinds. So not olive oils in Romania, except on the table, as I told you. What is the very interesting fact here? We realize the problem of consuming is generally a result of the fact the consumer has not very clear idea about what local product is. So we want to invest during this project in creating that awareness of the consumer, which are the advantages of moving on in this part. Also, if you are moving to the third project, it is one that is going at the moment. Now this is about dairy products. Again, we want to have some investment, but more of everything. We want to invest as much as possible in the promotion of Transylvania dairy, because this is the most important thing that we have at the moment. We are in Transylvania, which is a specific region of Romania where the capacity of production for agriculture is quite small, because it's a hilly area, so we don't have very large farms, and because we don't have very large farm, we cannot compete with the prices. We cannot benefit on the economy of scale, so we are focusing on the quality, and focusing on that quality, it is also increasing the awareness of the consumers that those products coming for the short value chain, coming from the region, will bring them additional advantages, not only of the taste. Also, the last project that I want you to present today, well, this is about meat, Black Angus. If you know what Black Angus, I suppose you are aware.
Yeah.
Well, Black Angus, it's now being more and more important in Romania. Actually, beef, it's going more and more important in Romania. We do not have a very clear background in consumption of beef like steaks. Well, it's increasing. The consumption of consumer is changing, is adapting, and there is a very large potential for the market. So we need to invest not only in convincing the producer that is and consumer that is important, but also in the quality of meat. And this is what we are doing at the moment. And you see it, for the quality of the meat, we are focusing on 2 universities. Well, 1 university and a research institute to prove the quality, because, you know, Black Angus is not specific to Romania, but it's now part of Romanian cuisine. Well, those are the project, and the last slide, it is about how is this doing. We have to understand that kind of project, even if they are not so big, they could have a very big impact. Our cluster was created actually to give opportunity of small producer like this one to go on the market and to compete with very large companies. Well, it's very interesting that promotion of the short value chain is 100% finance, and that give us a boost. While the investment, it's 70%, the rest has to be covered by the companies which is investing in that technology. But you can have an possible half of the money in advance, so you can use it in advance, and also you can use different kind of payment requests. So I will buy from you, for instance, I will not pay you. You provide me the invoice, I will send to the authorities, and they will pay you. So that it's reducing the pressure on us as part of this project. So we had very good experiences in that. We support our members. Besides those projects are many other projects which, of course, we have no time to focusing, where our cluster is not member, but it's created because of our members. We are creating synergies among the members, and we inform them how to do it. Because our cluster is part of the monitoring committee of the National Strategic Plan, so we are there when everything is discussed, when the criteria, when the calendar, the draft of any measure, it is there. We have a voice, and of course our voice is in fact the voice of our members. So that will be very shortly what it is about this this project that we've done. But of course, there are many other things to be discussed. So I'm here for the question. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Felix. My question that comes to mind is, under which fund were these projects financed?
Well, it is on not regional; it's agricultural development. Fund.
Okay.
EFDF, yeah.
Very good. Other questions coming in. We'll get to them after our final presentation of project. Keep in mind, look at the bottom of your screen there. You can see Q&A, you can see chat, you can see raise hand. You can click on one of those to make a point or pose a question. When you click on raise your hand, that means we can put you on directly online and you can ask a question yourself. Otherwise you can send in your questions. So great, they're coming in. And before we get to them now, let's move on to Monica Quesada, Project Manager, Maritime Cluster of the Canary Islands. Welcome, Monica. Bienvenida.
Hi, Chris. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting us into this talk. Thanks, Nina and Chris, for all the great work. The Canary Islands Maritime Cluster is a regional non-profit association that was created in 2008. We will be 15 years old next month. That is a great news for us. And our main objective is to promote the development and international competitiveness of the Canary Islands maritime and marine sector. Last year, our entity was once again recognized as Innovative Business Group by the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Tourism for the dynamization of the maritime sector in Canary Islands. This recognition gives our companies the opportunity to apply for state calls for proposals exclusively for clusters where they can carry out research and development projects, and the latest call being for more than 50 million euros. The CMC supports the internationalization strategies of companies within the blue economy, and we brings together more than 100 members, including large companies, small and medium-sized enterprise, research organizations, universities, technology centers, and other entities administration-linked ecosystem. And its business areas include agents in maritime value chains such as ship repair, maritime transport, port services, marine biotechnology, recreational and sport sailing, fishing and aquaculture, tourism, marine renewable energies, and auxiliary maritime service. Next, please. Our cluster is in the Canary Islands, an outermost region which, together with its 8 Atlantic and Indian partners, represent the oceanic archipelagos belonging to the EU members, states in territories far away from the European continent, as external borders of the European Union, which gives us a specific status governed by the provision of Article 349 of the treaty. We are singular and insular territories, and we have a specific strategy for us, the othermost range. Next, please. Our regions have a unique blue economy potential, thanks to their large exclusive economic zones, which represent more than half of such zones in the EU, and our rich marine biodiversity, being unique biodiversity hotspots in the Union. This linked to the implementation of a specific budget in the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, the MFAF fund, and which our remote regions benefit from an allocated budget of 315 million euros for structural investment and compensation costs, of which 82 million being for Canary Islands. That is a specific fund for us, and it's because of that I will be introduced in this slide. Next, please. The Canary Islands is one of the few territories in Spain whose economic sector includes all the subsectors involved in the blue economy, with a wide variety of activities and one of the most complete in the whole of the European Union. Also, the sector that contributes most to the gross domestic product in Canary Islands is normally the tourism, according to the latest report of blue economy activity in Canary Islands, published by the Marine Science Technology Center in 2022, with data from 2020. In a regional macroeconomic context of crisis, the blue economy has contributed to the economy of the Canary Islands 6.14% of gross domestic product. Next, please. Now, I will like to describe what our projects are about, because our projects are aligned with the 2023-2027 strategic plan of our cluster, as well as with the interest of our companies, with the help of the driving companies that define the lines of interest for the coming years and in innovation and internationalization. That is why our projects are aimed at increasing the competitiveness of our companies through innovation, internationalization, and the identification of opportunities of diversification and emerging subsectors like blue biotechnology, offshore aquaculture, marine renewable energies, and green hydrogen. Next, please. Our cluster can access different types of funding depending on their origin, regional, national, European, and international. And it should be noted that this funding is always competitive. At regional level, we have access to funds from the Canary Islands Agency for Research, Innovation, and the Information Society of the Canary Islands government, with funds from the Canary Islands ERDF operational program. Other regional institutions such as PROESCA, or at local level from the Gran Canaria Economic Promotion Society and the City Council of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria from Ciudad de Mar. We also have projects financed by the Interreg MAC Cooperation Program, which is the main source of our funding now. And also we have the national level funding. As innovative business group, our partners with our support can access for research funds, which at latest call for proposal have been fed with funding from Next Generation for Spain. At European level, we have projects financed directly by the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, Horizon Europe Single Market Program, and the European Digital Innovation Hubs. It should be noted that some of the calls with shared management funds have not yet been launched this year. They are being finalized beforehand with the funds from 2014-2020 program. And it's because of that that we are not involved in some projects. At the international level, beyond Europe, we are also exploring other types of funding linked to international tenders, national union agency, and philanthropy. And as mentioned in the introduction, we mainly rely on projects to carry out innovation and internationalization action for our company. And CMC currently has 10 projects under implementation, 5 of which have actions aimed to the nautical sports sector, 3 on digitalization of the blue economy sectors, and 2 on marine renewable energies. One of them, the AquaWind device, which is a multi-purpose solution that combines energy generation with a floating offshore wind and fish farming. And H2Heat, which is a solution to generate green hydrogen for heating purpose through the energy produced by the ELISA Helicam prototype of offshore wind energy generation. Specifically in European funds under shared management, we have access mainly to the ERDF funds from the Canary Islands Operational Program and the Interreg Cooperation Fund. And finally, next, please. Related to what are the advantages and challenges of the funding system for clusters, our cluster is funded through membership fees and competitive calls for proposals. The delay in the management of funds from 2014-2020 programs make it difficult to access funding under shared management now. In our region, there is no direct funding for X structure. There are other regions in Spain that do have this type of aid. There is a specific funding for specific studies in competitive calls at regional level, like Port Wind project is a recently project that we closed this year. And this project was related to carry out a benchmarking study, taking as reference the port of Brest in Brittany and the port of Esbjerg in Denmark as example of successful implementation of specific port facilities for the regional deployment of offshore wind energy that was mainly interest for us now. Also, the specific funding for specific studies is related to ERDF fund, but it's very limited. However, these calls are more successful than those related to direct management funds, and that is important for us. At national level, access to the register of IAE is difficult for non-industrial regions and territories as small as ours. However, this register gives our companies the opportunity to access exclusive funding. To access European funding, it's necessary to partner with entities that already have experience in this project. And in some projects, such as Horizon Europe, it's necessary to have specialized consultants. In terms of advice for other clusters, for our cluster, it's very important that a couple of driving companies define the lines of interest of the sector, because that pulls the business ecosystem. The commercial work of the cluster manager is very important. Being present at events, meetings, international congresses makes it easy to enter already established consortium. Attending information days in person is important also to meet with the administration directly and also identify what you can bring to international consortia or national consortia according to the experience of the entity, its companies, and the sector it encompasses. Also, you must submit 10 proposals to get 1 or 2, especially in the European proposal. So you have to be consistent and persistent in this work. Thank you all, and thank you, Chris, for this time.
Yeah, muchas gracias, Monica. A lot of really good points and a lot of information on those slides, and everybody should keep in mind you can go back to those slides and presentations. They will be published, so you can go back after this. You know, when you talk about, I guess from experience, you've seen that you've got to make several attempts before you get one or two. But those one or two, what stood out, do you think, that made those the ones that won?
I think because these are very aligned to the calls, and that is because they win this kind of project. But there is, Bruno says afterwards, there is a lot of organizations, a lot of entities that compete for this fund, and it's because of that you need to be very aligned to the call to sustain.
Okay, and most of the projects you deal with are their energy and aquaculture, or there's other stuff?
Yeah, mostly related to offshore energy, because here in Canary Islands we are dealing for this energy transition, and we are very good opportunities in the marine energies, and if because of that our companies are very interested in this kind of subsector.
Okay, and which funds do those come from?
For little very specific studies, we can count with funds related to ERDF,
like
program for Canary Islands. But for the big one, we need to go to the direct funds by Horizon Europe or the Maritime Fund, but with direct management.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Monica. So Felix and Bruno, if you can go back online with your cameras, so we can go to some Q&A. And for all of you watching, listening, please do put in your questions in the Q&A button there at the bottom. You can also talk through the chat as well, and you can actually talk directly online if you want by clicking the raise your hand. One question I think actually might be best maybe for Andre, maybe you want to put your camera on too, is how can Ukrainians join these funds? Is that accessible for a non-EU member, or are there other funds from the bilateral agreements that the EU has with Ukraine?
Yeah, I noticed that that question in the chat as well. So I'll make a disclaimer here in saying that this is not necessarily my my area of expertise, but indeed in latest years there's a lot of funding which is available for Ukraine, of course, in support against the Russian war of aggression. But indeed, in terms of shared management, cohesion policy, agricultural policy, the access to funding is a little bit more complicated because, of course, as mentioned already, the support is really at local level in the different regions of the EU, and the target beneficiaries are companies, SMEs, NGOs as EU members. So
okay,
sad to not give a very encouraging reply on that one, of course. But as outlined by President von der Leyen, enlargement is high on the agenda of EU, and I mean, we're very happy to have Ukraine as a candidate member state, and looking forward to the moment that they will join.
Sure. And another question, I think also to Andre, maybe the others might have an idea, but related to the subject of clusters, where and how can we find financing programs specifically dedicated to clusters? Are there such programs?
Maybe my colleagues have a better view on that one from their personal experience. Again, on my side, I would not think that there are specific calls dedicated only to that, but for sure in the area of shared management, there are many calls which will fit in the policy or in the industry, or in that specific sector where the clusters will have very high chances with customization of their projects to reply to the conditions of the call to get funding.
Okay, I see. Felix, you raised your hand. You got some input there from there.
Yes, there is now a call dedicated to cluster. Well, cluster for agriculture, this is what I'm doing. It is in COSME program, and it's dedicated to creating European agri cluster. I know that because we are leading one of proposal in this field. And I see the rest of the guys has their hands in the air, so I will pass to them the mic.
Yeah. Okay. Who came up first? Monica, I'll go to you first.
Okay, thank you. Normally, in our case, call for proposal under shared management are published in the official state bulletins, the official bulletins of Canary Islands also, and the provincial bulletins. But you can search all of these calls in the national database of grants and financial aid, to which is possible to subscribe. That is a site web for Spain that is very easy to access to all the calls. And the process of submitting the project usually involves a lot of paperwork. That is the
Yes, as you warned in your special tips, I think people should take that one slide and print it out and remember it, because a lot of really interesting points there. Bruno, what can you add to the mix?
Yeah, from our side, we have a national portal that we can see the calls and also manage the proposals and the projects. But for each type of call, there is an entity responsible. And in the website of that entity, we can discover the calls that are open also. About the call specific from clusters, we don't have already now, we have specific calls for entities representing a network. So not from clusters, but can be associations and other types of entities representing an industry or a network.
Okay, very good. And I guess you've all talked about how you find the information on shared management. What I'd also like to know, because this part of these cluster collaboration talks are giving feedback to the Commission to give a bit of advice on maybe how it could work better. So Andre is all ears, and if you have any suggestions on how this shared management process could work better, does anybody have any input on that among those of you panelists? Did you hit a bump in the road that maybe Andre and company could help smooth out, Bruno?
From our side, it was to have more time to have the delivered proposal. For example, we have some situations that we know the calls and we have only 3 months. So I think in the next scheme funding, the notice, they are putting some calendar with the calls from the next years. So I think this challenge will be solved. And about it's too many papers to deliver with the entities that has project implementing in the national authorities. So I think if the entities that has already the data in the database of the national authorities, it could be easy for the entities to not to deliver at the same documents for each proposal.
Oh yeah, so there's no duplication. Yeah. Duplicate. Yeah, I thought interesting, Monica, in your list, you were saying that either partner with somebody who's had experience doing this or hire a consultant. Doesn't that indicate that it's maybe too complicated, that maybe it could be simplified, streamlined? Do you have any advice on that?
Sure. As I say, the process of submitting projects in shared management, it usually involves a lot of paperwork, more more than Horizon Europe or more than MFAF directly management. But it's normally because you are they're involved a lot of administration, and
Yep.
normally that was occurred. But the formalities are becoming increasingly simple. In our cluster, we have technicians specialized in the presentation of projects, both for directly and for the support of cluster partners company. And for those calls that are very difficult, we can hire some consultants for the specific calls. But we work with technicians that work with us and that advise our companies for access for this type of funds.
Is there anybody who could tell, I mean, storytelling can go a long way in helping to illustrate. You know, maybe one of you could talk about how you managed to secure funding from shared management. Would anybody like to tell us a story on that? Your latest project. What did that involve? What was it, and how did you get the money?
For our latest project was the Port Wind project, and it was for carry out a benchmarking study for the port facility of offshore wind energy deployment in Canary Islands. Because here we are the companies, we are the supply chain, because we are usually working for the oil and gas sector, and this work is mainly similar to the supply chain and for the offshore wind energy, but the port's infrastructure must be specific. This infrastructure be to carry out some works to dedicate this infrastructure for the offshore wind energy. It's because of that, with these funds for the ERDF fund for the Canary Islands program specific, we can allocate 25,000 euros to do this study. And we were in Brest, in Brittany, in Esbjerg, in Denmark, to see what where this infrastructure dedicated to offshore wind.
All right, you needed that expertise to clinch the funding. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Felix, something else?
Yes, in our case now we are running a large project, the national funds dedicated to make investment, which will belongs to the cluster associations, of course, and that was quite a large amount of money that we need to co-finance, because somewhere around 30% of all the money should be for investment should be provided by us, half of the salaries and something like that. So we are talking about a large amount of money. On our experience, we tried with a similar project a couple of years ago to work with the bank, but the process of bureaucracy and lack of stability in Romanian policy just was almost impossible to finish it fine. Because the reimburse that we have with the bank, it was not respected by the authorities that has to give us the money we spend it in advance. So now we changed the policy, and actually we involved some major players from our members, which are co-financing in advance the activities, and they are reimbursed with the money when the finance from the authorities come back into our accounts. And of course, that put an additional pressure on us as a cluster, because our members, which are, well, involving a large amounts of money, will have additional requests for us. So the quality and the pressure is higher, but it's working much more smoothly than on the previous way. So this is the experience we have it at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Let's see. Let's go to a question. Does the COSME fund is that still active? If not, is there an alternative? Who would like to answer that? The COSME fund, that is that competitiveness fund, right?
I
Yeah,
think
it's still active. Yeah, sorry, Andrei, you can.
Yeah.
no, just to say that it's from the previous programming period, and it's reaching a little bit the end of the available funding. And I think Marek replied in the chat that now it's replaced by the single market program with a quite more significant funding envelope. But I would encourage you to tune in next week on direct management programs, because I'm sure that this will feature prominently in my colleague's presentation on that. It's a very good opportunity for funding.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess we're coming to an end. We have a suggestion from somebody about getting more information on the funding for clusters. So I guess, Andrei, you've taken note on that, right? Okay. Any just a quick round. What's your next move on your projects? Starting with Monica.
We will continue to search opportunities in the shared management and also in the direct management, because for us it's very important to count with this funding for our support of the cluster and our company. And now we are working in the Interreg MAC program that will be launched next week, and we are focused on this call now. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so you're busy. Bruno, what's your next move?
Yeah, from our side, Mobinov is preparing for the Portugal 2030, the next program scheme. And now we are having meetings with our members to see the needs. And then when we have now what will be the program, not specific calls, but we know the areas that they will focus. So we are preparing that for when the PT 2030 opens, to have these the tip that I said, start early, research these type of tips. We are working on it, and then implement the projects to have an impact in our ecosystem.
Okay. Yeah, and Felix, what are you up to?
Oh, we are not having a next movie. We have a continuous dance, to be honest. Today it is the deadline for 2 applications that we submitted to European Union in the soil mission. Next week will be another one on Horizon, and in 49 days we have another one on COSME. And we're already working for another proposal that will be in February 2024. We have tomorrow the first kickoff meeting of the consortium. So we are thinking on to the future. We know which is the share of success stories in European projects. So we are trying many heads. So we already have 4 active programs, European projects at the moment. So we are quite busy.
So it's a marathon dance. You gotta stay on that dance floor all the time. Andrei, anything more to add?
Just very quickly, I wanted to thank everybody for their feedback. Indeed, I took note of some of the ideas which were provided, and I'd like to encourage you, please, if you have any particular feedback to give us. As I mentioned maybe earlier, we're already thinking next steps. So we're preparing the post 2027 MFF and the set of regulations and everything that we need to take account there. So your feedback, as having direct experience with accessing funds, is very valuable to us. So please reach out with this feedback. And I promise you that we're looking at the administrative burden and the paperwork angle of it for quite some time now. We know that this is quite an important one, and probably in shared management it's heavier than in direct management, simply because there's multiple sources of funding. So there's the EU budget, but then there's the national co-financing aspect, but we are sure that we can improve on that as well in the future. So please reach out, and happy to get your feedback and work towards better opportunities for everybody.
That's great.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, Andre, thank you for listening to all the inputs from the panelists. We have one other question in the Q&A. Can you share the link of the fund under COSME for agriculture? Because that's still active at the moment, right, Andre? That's
yes,
okay.
I think Felix mentioned it earlier. So
yeah, okay, there it is. Okay, very good. Okay, and now we would like to ask all of you to give us your input through Slido on your takeaways. We want to make a nice big fat word cloud of what your takeaways are after having listened to all those experiences. Hopefully it helped you in what you're trying to accomplish, and maybe you can tell us your takeaway, which would also help to enrich what we just heard, and perhaps offer some advice to the others as well. So if you can put in your takeaways on that, what you think was the most important thing that you heard. Okay, we'll wait a little bit on that, and as we're waiting. Andre, what do you think? What should people walk away from this discussion? What is the most important point they should walk away with?
I mean, to be honest, I'm very happy with the first words that popped up, which is open to everyone, because I think if I had one goal for my presentation was exactly to raise awareness that funding is available everywhere in all member states, in all regions, and covering a very broad policy and industries. So it is indeed open to everyone. And I think on the basis of the feedback of the colleagues here, indeed, you need to work for it. It is not easy, or you know, it does not fall from the tree, which is agreed. But there are significant funding opportunities here. Let's say in terms of size, much more significant at this stage than directly under direct management programs. So never forget about this. Access the information, reach the national portals for information. Please watch out for the information on the Seal of Excellence, because I think a lot of people are experienced with Horizon. But please never forget that once you have submitted a very good project there, for example, and you receive the Seal of Excellence, then that opens the door to ERDF funding in a much more straightforward way. So I will also share a link in the chat now on how this works in practice, and I would encourage everybody to have a read who has a bit of experience with Horizon or intends to apply for Horizon funding. I think they should keep this very much in the back of their minds.
And in that chat, I see Marek added, if you want to learn more about the SME relief package, join the webinar on the 21st of September. And there you can register on that. Clusters is the big word there. Okay. And I think Monica's advice on, pitching several proposals can perhaps raise your chances of winning a few of them. So that's important. And also it's all in the preparation, as we heard from several of you. All right, I think that's a lot of good takeaways there in the word cloud that we see. Obviously, people were listening closely on what they should be doing to win those shared management projects. Our thanks to Monica, to Felix, to Bruno, and to Andre. Thanks to you all. And let us then move on to the final part of this, which are the funding opportunities from Nina with the Cluster Collaboration Platform. Nina, please.
Thank you, and thanks very much to all the speakers. I believe we've learned a lot, and I would just like to repeat what Andre has also opened with, And what we would like to close with is please have a look at the national portals, which are for you the entry points for the EU funds managed by the national regional authorities, so the shared management funds we discussed today. There are, as we've learned, possibilities, you know, the ERDF, the ESF Plus, the Region Fund, Just Transition Fund, or Maritime, Fisheries, Agriculture. So please have a look at this. We will also, of course, publish the slides afterwards on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform so that you can go back and have a closer look and click all the links. But we encourage you to have a look at these different portals to find the one that is for your country, so that you can have a look and that we get the 50% of the people who've never had any shared management funding to get that number down. We would also like to remind you of the opportunities that are for SMEs from our Euroclusters, as always. The Euroclusters as one result of especially called under the SMP dedicated for clusters, they are giving support to SMEs in different ecosystems and with funding for internationalization, training, innovation, or for the adoption of processes and technologies in their different projects. It can be for water smart solutions, e-health, offshore renewable energy, mobility, or textile, creative and cultural industries, manufacturing, energy intensive industries, aeronautics, space and defense, polymer recycling. So there's a lot going on where the members of your clusters can have great opportunities. All the calls are on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, and so have a look at that. If you're interested in getting involved and to look into funding all or if you would like to tap into creating a new consortium, you maybe have an idea that you would like to develop with new partners, we invite you to come to the Cluster Collaboration Lab. It is an interactive workshop to meet, to network, to exchange ideas, and to get new proposals on the line, and to work together with the participants on developing those projects. And the next two will take place on the 25th and the 22nd of October in Ljubljana and Slovenia, and on the 14th and 15th of November in Vilnius, Lithuania. You can scan the QR code or find all the information on the Cluster Collaboration Platform. This is basically what could be a continuation of everything we discussed today. We learned about the calls, we learned about the different funding opportunities, and these workshops are a great way to kickstart your next project. And last but not least, for the SME relief package, the Enterprise Europe Network is holding a second town hall talk online tomorrow at 9:30. So if you're interested in joining, you can still register for that. I believe Marek has already put the link in the chat, so have a look at that as well. And with that, thank you very much. And don't forget to tune in next week for the direct management funding that we will discuss.
Yes, Nina, I see in the chat something from Pablo saying it would be great if the training from the dozens of EU-funded initiatives could be centralized under an EU training portal to avoid reinventing the wheel. Does that not exist? I thought it did.
I mean, there are a lot of opportunities online where you can exchange, learn from other. I don't recall the one single portal, but maybe if someone from the EC colleagues can know about that and can put that in.
Yeah. Okay, it exists and it is great. Okay, I see it. All right. Yeah, and those workshops obviously are a big help as well, aren't they? The ones that you mentioned. So everyone keep in mind the next cluster collaboration talks. There you have a list of them, and please be sure to register for them, and also to register on the cluster collaboration platform, and hashtag EU clusters talks for anything great you'd like to cast wider. We'd love to see that. This is being recorded, has been recorded for playback. And it's great to be with you. My name is Chris Burns. See you next time.